So good morning, February the 28th, 2017. This is CISG113, Section 1, Information Security and Privacy. Today is day number 11 into week number 6. So already week number 6 in the second learning contract. So let's get started. Well, if you look at the calendar, which is on the white screen, you see that we are already in week number 6. Now, altogether, we have 14 weeks together in the semester, so we are already in the second week of the second milestone. Because it is week number 6, we're going to have week number 5, 6, and 7 for the second learning contract. We also call it the second milestone. If you look at the week's content, we basically would like to revisit the topic number 2, which is web attacks and internet vulnerabilities. We discussed about it in week number 5. Okay, and we also would like to come back to the issues of ethical issues of hacking and cracking. So you need to understand, in some sense, the differences between hacking and cracking. Okay, then we again have to stick to the very interesting method of learning called self-regulated learning, which could basically be summarized as you need to set goals, the learning goals, what you want to achieve within a specific period of time, which is a timeline. And then you need to set out some action plans, which include steps you need to follow in order to accomplish your learning goals. In the process of doing that, you also have to review the progress of your work by doing evaluations. And in case you discover that the progress is not good enough, you need to exercise your ability to make decisions to modify your action plan. And so it's also part of the revisions concept, adjustment of your actions plan. And then you repeat the cycle for as many days you have in the specific timeline. Okay, for example, in the second learning contract, if you have 3 weeks time, we probably can set it into a 3 sub-milestone period for 1 week each milestone. And then you can have a review of your progress at the end of each week, something like this. Good morning, welcome back. Okay, so we are just starting the discussions of this week's material. And wonderfully speaking, last week we shared one specific day of the class in the context of doing your presentations. Almost every one of you have done your 5-minute presentations on the work you have done in the first learning contract, which is excellent because you all have the experience to speak in front of the class. That is very important. So I know that some of you would like to complete your presentations today, but I would like to hold you until after I finish the longer class today. I will sure give you time to do your 5-minute presentations with Gary. We also should have Garlic, but she's not here today. Anyone on the table who would like to make sure you got the chance to do your presentations, then you just go back to week number 4 to sign up and upload your PowerPoint. We will come back to that at about 10:55. Okay, so let's stick to week number 6 now here. I would like to open up today's class by using a very simple ideas, okay, which we should have already visited in the first learning contract. But in order to help you to understand the context of this course much better, in the context of information security, data protections, I would like to give you a short review, okay? And the short review, the first one is back to week number 5. Okay, in week number 5, day number 10, since we have already used day number 10 as the time slot for all of you to do presentations, allow me to bring you back to day number 10, which is in week number 5, to help you understand this. Before we get into the topics that I just mentioned on information security review and also part of the data protections, allow me to pinpoint you on one important technique, okay, or consciousness in your mind, or mentality you need to bring into every classroom today, and that is called refractive learning. Now, think about what you did in the first learning contract. I invite you to create a proposals of what you want to do in terms of selecting from 4 weeks reading list, 1 reading list, okay? And in terms of selecting 1 questions out of that chosen reading list, all right? And in terms of selecting 1 source out of many sources for that chosen questions. So you have to make a lot of decisions before you actually come to a questions or topic of interest that is purely yours. And based on that topic of interest, you start to create, or better say, write your journal, which is basically a process of note-taking. Note-taking in the sense you have to observe what you got, you have to question into what you got, and you need to ask the essential questions of what can I learn from this? Okay, and after that, you submit the 4 important artifacts, the proposal, the journal, the discussions details, as well as the PowerPoint. And after that, you exercise your guts to present your work in 5 minutes. So we complete this stage of learning contract number 1. Okay? So each one of you, by this class, on day number 11, week number 6, you have this much experience with you. You did your first learning contract, you make decisions along the way, you wrote some notes, you discuss your notes with your learning partner, you create a PowerPoint to present what you have learned, and you presented it last week. And so, before we get back to the topic reviews, I would like to bring you to that very important methods of learning, which will help you to add to the richness of the inquiry-based learning, and is part of self-regulated learning in the second learning contract, and that is the refractive learning. Okay, so ready? Now pay attention to refractive learning. Okay, just about 5 minutes time. Good. You just need to watch this. Okay, now I'm going to reboot my computer to make sure the sound will come back. But the previous video do not need to have a lot of audio output. So the idea of this very short quick note is to tell you what you did in the first learning contract, particularly when you complete the set of artifacts to submit, is part of active learning process. But the differences between your perceptions of what this active learning is all about must be contrast with what you have been doing as a passive learner. All right? So how do we distinguish you as an individual student as an active learner or as a passive learner? And this would tell us a lot of difference whether or not you could achieve or get what you are supposed to get in the second learning contract. Refractions means you don't just do things automatically or as a mechanical system. You do things by understanding every single reasons why you do it. For example, at this point, I would like to engage in your table discussions. First of all, referring back to your first learning contract, why do you need to create a proposal? In creating your proposal, why do you need to select one width reading list from the 4 width reading lists? Why do you need to select one question from the many questions in that width reading list? And why do you need to select one source out of the many sources for that specific question you've chosen? Now, you need to come back to answer those questions. It's not just because the teacher tells you this is what you need to do. Of course, I told you that this is what you need to do, but without understanding the rationale, the reasons behind doing that, you're not going to get what you're going to get. So before we move ahead, I want you to stop and think, what have you learned based on looking back to the process? This is step number 1. And here, on this particular video, they introduced to you a figure called Donald Shaw. He introduced to us the 2 types of learning. One is called surface learning. The other is called deep learning. The surface learner will not question about why they need to do something. The deep learner are very much concerned of why they are asked to do something like this. And so he put together 2 concepts to help us to distinguish who we are. The first concept is refractions in action. The second concept is refractions on actions. Okay, if you don't quite understand the meaning in the context of English language, refractions on something and refractions in something refer to the timeline when we questions about this. Suppose if I give you a task, okay, and you're going to accomplish the task. So you ask, how can we accomplish the task? Immediately. Okay? So because your major concern is to get the job done. So you try to figure out the best possible solutions to get the job done. Which one will you choose? Refractions in actions or refractions on actions? Suppose, another scenario, you have already done the work, the job, as far as you're concerned, it's completed. And so you pass your work to the teacher or to someone who asked you to get the job done. And the persons who received the work you did ask you, think a little bit more about what you did. Tell me why you did it the way you did. Which one would you choose? Refractions in actions or refractions on actions? The time, the specific point in time when you exercise your refractions will distinguish when you're going to use refractions in actions or refractions on actions. Now, I give you some time to think a little bit about this. Every table, you're trying to think about this simple question. Clear, I want you to join this table. Don't sit alone, okay? And then we are going to play the video again, okay? And then you will discover the answer. Okay, I want you to try this method of learning. Talk about this, okay? And in the meantime, I'm going to reboot my computer to restore the sound. Talk, you need to think about this, okay? We are talking about refractions in actions and refraction on actions. The differences between a surface learner and a deep learner. The differences between whether or not you understand why you're doing something the way you did it, or you simply follow the order, okay? For a long time, secondary students have been following teachers' order to pass through secondary school as if they are learning something. But for a long time, we know that they forgot what they learned. All right? So today, it's very important for me to bring out this point in class to discuss with you. Refraction in actions, refraction on actions. As part of the refractive learning process in the second learning contract called self-regulated learning. Okay? Have a simple and concise table discussions to see if you understand what I mean, okay, before we continue with today's class. Feel free to talk. It's time for you to share your idea, okay? Okay, I think 5 minutes has passed. Now, I'm going to play the video one more time. And I hope you focus on discovering the particular answers that you can find in the short video here. Refractive learning. Look back to what you did. Think about why you did it that way. Consolidate your learning. Do not waste time, and then you can retain what you learned. got this? Have you found the answer? Do you got this? Do you got this? Refractive learning, it's an important part of deep learning. It's an important part of true learning. Sometimes we say authentic learning because we can always distinguish what we learn from what we do with what we learn. For example, refractions in actions always give us the idea that whenever we face any issues that we need to solve it, we ask ourselves this question: what can we do about this? And it's reflections in learning, in the context of solving the problem. Now that you solve the problem, you basically finish your exam, you basically pass a course, and then someone asks you, oh, you learned something in this area, or in that particular course, can you share with me what you learned about this? And then you say, okay, wait a minute, I went through this exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3, and we did presentations, we did a project, and that's what we do. If you ask me what have I learned from this course, wait, I need to try to put together what does all of this activity mean for me, and can I share with you what I've learned? First of all, you can say, oh, I learned a lot from this class. For example, on 1.2, 3, 4, you were doing reflections on actions, on something which you did in the past. Why do you do it? In order to make sense of it. Make sense of it means what? You know your learning is put in the proper positions inside your knowledge framework, so you do not lose it that easily. You do not learn this by memorization. You do not learn this by rote learning. You learn this by true understanding and practice. Okay? So I hope you understand this very important distinctions. Now, with this as the foundations, allow me to help you to review what you should have learned in the first learning contract of this course. Because now we're in the second learning contract. I would like to summarize this into 2 important sub-videos. One is called information security, what you need to know. The other is called data protection, what you need to know. Let's start with the data protection first.
How often do you get asked for information about yourself, or fill in a form with your personal details? Maybe you work with other people's data. How do you know if you're handling it correctly? Whether you're concerned about your own personal data, or what other people do with yours, this is what you need to know about data protection. Before we look at the data protection principles and how we're protected, let's cover some basics about what personal data is and what data processing means. First off, meet Laura. In order for data to be personal data, it needs to be able to identify a living individual. So Laura's name by itself wouldn't be enough to identify her, but her name with her address would. Often when you're on the phone and the person you're speaking to wants to verify who you are, they'll ask for your name, address and date of birth. When these 3 are all together, that's an example of personal data. What firms do with this data is known as data processing, which is just about anything you do with the data, from gathering it, ordering it, storing it, and making sure it's secure to transport or transmit. And also it covers how you dispose of it when you don't need it anymore. Recently, Laura went online and bought some DVDs from Amazing.com. She gave them a lot of information about herself and her credit card details. In this situation, Laura is known as the data subject because the data is about her. Amazing.com is the data controller, as they decide how the data will be processed and what happens to it. Amazing.com outsources its customer support to a third-party call center. Employees in the call center have access to some of Amazing.com's records, but can only use this data for very specific purposes. Amazing.com is the data controller, and the call center is known as the data processor. So personal data is data which can identify a living individual who's known as the data subject. The data controller decides how this data is processed, and processing means just about everything that happens to the data. Now, there are some data protection principles. Let's have a look at them. An important part of processing data fairly and lawfully is the privacy notice. This, at a minimum, tells the data subject how their data will be used and asks for their consent to use it. Laura remembers being asked for her consent when she called up about her car insurance. And also, there was a checkbox on the web application for a building society account. But when she asked about her life assurance, they said they needed some details about her health, and this is sensitive personal data. So she was told what this was going to be used for and was asked for her explicit consent for it to be used this way. Laura's health record, religious affiliations, racial and ethnic origin, political opinions, membership of trade unions, physical or mental health condition, her sexual life, and most things to do with any offences or alleged offences she may have committed are all sensitive personal data. It's fairly clear to see why it needs to be treated with greater care than other personal data, and why explicit consent is needed. Like many of us, Laura's got a bank account, car insurance, and a mortgage. When she applied for these, she gave a lot of information about herself to the different firms, but the data she was asked for had to be relevant to those accounts. For example, the bank didn't need to know if Laura had any points on a driving licence, or even if she could drive, but the insurance company she used for her car insurance did. It sounds obvious, but it's important, because when data is collected, it has to be relevant to the purpose and context and not be excessive. Recently, Laura got married and took her husband's name, so data about her surname and marital status need to be updated, because data must be accurate and, where necessary, kept up to date. It looks like Laura can get a better deal on her car insurance, and she wants to change provider. What happens to the data the old company holds about her? Well, they need to keep enough information for their records, but delete or dispose of anything that's no longer needed. Making sure it's disposed of securely, of course. We've all heard the stories. Hard drives found on rubbish tips, memory sticks with personal data have been lost, and so on. Laura expects, and the regulations require, firms to look after her data properly. This is more than storing data securely. It includes things like verification checks to make sure data is only given to the correct person, the way data is sent, for example by fax, email, or over the phone. And it's also the reason many firms have a clear desk policy, so personal data isn't left lying around for all to see. Because if the genie ever gets out of the bottle, there's no putting him back. We live in a global economy, and often firms will store or move data to different parts of the world. If any of Laura's data is sent abroad, the data controller needs to be sure that it's processed with the same standards as it would be here. Laura, as a data subject, has certain rights. Let's have a look at some of them. She can write to a firm and request to see the information held about her. She'll have to pay a small fee. If any of her data is inaccurate, she can ask for it to be corrected. She can prevent her data from being used for direct marketing, and she has rights about decisions which are made by automated means. For example, if she applied for a loan and the decision was made purely by automated means, with no human intervention, then she could ask for this decision to be reconsidered. If a breach in the data protection principles caused Laura damage or distress, she might be able to claim compensation. There's quite a lot to data protection, and our personal data is important to us. Understanding what you need to do to comply with the legislation, and also how the legislation protects you and those around you, will help to make sure that data is processed fairly and lawfully.
We have already learned quite a lot in this very short video. In a very interesting situations, which is presented by a fictitious figure, Nora, and you understand the compositions of what we call personal data. You also understand the meaning of sensitive data. You understand the meaning of handling data. You understand the case of transmitting data. You also understand the cases of disposals of personal data. Okay, to put things in perspective, what have we learned from similar cases in Macau? Again, somehow in March last year in Macau, we discovered that in a rubbish collection center near the government hospital in Sandang in Macau, we call it, we discovered that a large number of patients' records in the paper form was simply left there. And in the process, when the rubbish truck picks it up, unfortunately, they broke in the box, and when the rubbish truck went away, all those paper records were flying on the sky, distributed on the road, and everyone who walked by could recognize that this is a record with real persons, with medical data, with private information. How can this be done like this? about this story, and he asked why they did it this way. First of all, a lot of things have not been done properly inside the hospital. Those records must be shattered before they dispose it. And they simply dispose it like that. Move from the archive room to the rubber scan. It's an insult of privacy of all the patients. So you see, all right? But in Macau, after that, they try to interpret that in a way which no one seems to be accountable for this. Unfortunately, this did not happen again. All right, this is data protections, what you need to know. Now, I hope you got something about this. This is review number 1 for learning culture. Number 1, if you want to know something about information security and privacy, this is it. Second, let's move fast forward to this week, day number 11. No, week number 6, day number 11. I want to help you to understand, other than data protections, what you need to know. It's information security, what you need to know. Okay? So let's move on.
Not many of us will leave our houses or cars unlocked, or leave valuables unattended. But when it comes to information, we tend to be less careful. Just look at the phone hacking scandal. Many of the victims left their passwords set to the factory default setting of password, which made it easy for hackers. It shows that we need to be more careful with information about ourselves and that which we handle for others. So this is what you need to know about information security. Most of us, whether at home or at work, have a huge amount of data on computers, smartphones, storage devices, tablets, and on paper. There's so much of it we can become complacent, perhaps mixing everyday documents with sensitive information, then treating them as if they were all just ordinary files with nothing important on them. But what if these files got into the wrong hands? Embarrassment? Inconvenience? Public scandal and dismissal? A lot of information security is about being more aware of the risks we're taking. Personal information may seem unimportant to you, but to a criminal, it can be the key that opens doors. We need passwords for everything these days. This is Laura, and she uses them a lot. This one looks pretty secure, and she knows not to write it down. But here's the thing. She uses the same passwords for lots of different websites. The same one for her social media as her online auction account, her bank, and her amazing.com account. And for some site she had to register for. Criminals capture usernames, passwords, and personal information from bogus sites. It's one of the most common ways that criminals get our details. So using secure passwords is important, but it's also important to use different ones. And passwords are just the first line of defense. For important information, encryption makes it almost impossible for criminals to use the data, even if they do get through to it. That's why people often encrypt data on laptops or USB memory sticks. Encryption is also used to make data transfer through the internet more secure. Websites that are using encryption have an HTTPS address and a padlock symbol. Look for this if you're buying something or using a bank account or getting a quote for insurance, anytime when personal details and information are involved. But what about information on paper? We can be just as careless with written or printed documents. You may have heard of government officials with confidential documents on display, walking past photographers, or putting correspondence in public litter bins. It seems so obvious, but have you ever left any documents with confidential information lying around? In a briefcase, on a desk, or on a computer monitor where someone could see it, copy it, or print it off? Ever hit reply to all on an email and not check who it was going to? It might just be embarrassing, but it could be worse. A lot worse. Sometimes, though, it's more a case of stopping others gaining access. You wouldn't let a stranger follow you in through your front door. So why do people do this in secure areas of work? It's called tailgating. It might be a little embarrassing to say no or ask for ID, but look what happened in this case. An imposter went into a bank posing as an IT person come to fix a computer. Instead, he installed a small piece of software onto the system which allowed hackers to see what was being typed on the bank's computer and use this information to transfer money from the bank to their own accounts.
ATM machines.
Criminals tried to do something similar on Laura's computer at home by trying to install what's called malware. Fortunately, she had her antivirus and protection software up to date, and it stopped the hackers before they did any damage. Credit and debit cards are prime targets for criminals. Some clone them, while others watch over your shoulder as you enter your PIN code before stealing your card and using it. Look out for these so-called shoulder surfers and make sure they can't see your PIN as you enter it. Organised gangs of criminals are stealing information at such a rate that the cost of a credit card number and bank account details is about the same as the price of a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Criminals are always looking for new ways to get our information and use it for profit. Here are 3 things that may help to make it harder for them. The first is to be more aware of what information you have, how important it is, and how secure it is. Second is to assess what could happen if you lost it or it got into the wrong hands. And third, make sure you have adequate precautions in place to protect it. Although it may be difficult for us to see the value of the information we handle every day, we need to get into the habit of protecting our own and others' information in the same way as we look after our valuables and the things we care about.
We will save the money laundering piece later, okay? And it's very important for me to use this piece to remind you several things. Normally, in today's world, when we use the free of charge services over the internet, we will be invited to create an account. And so we need to choose a password in order to get access to that account. And most of the time, when we have more than one such account, we often like to use the same password. So in Google, I use this password. In Microsoft, I use this password. And in Facebook, I use the same password. And that is going to be dangerous because when your account is being hacked with your user ID, the hacker knows that normally people are lazy enough that they will use the same password. They will look through the internet to see if this user ID will happen in any other particular site. And they will start from there to steal your information. So the act of information security is don't use the same password for different accounts, as being mentioned here. What about the second phase here? As you can so much impress in things like this. It's about the way you protect your information, like when you use the bank teller card to get money. Today in Macau, you know that we have a very concealed environment, we cover everything. But normally, we lose the most important things. Oftentimes, the hackers will create some kind of facade surface to put over the keypad that we press. So whenever it's so concealed, we never care about to see if the keypad we press on it is really the keypad of the machines or some add-on. Normally, many of the hackers will put on top of something like this a small pack which could keep track of any keys you press. And they got your information. The next thing they do is to clone your card or they steal your telecard from you, and they could open up a lot of the revenues. Information security. Now, I do not want to bore you, but I just want to make sure this too important video help us to summarize a little bit of the informations in the context of information security and privacy in the First Amendment contract. All right? So now remember, there is no single way to summarize everything because each one of you might have chosen a different topic. But because this is a course on information security and privacy, as a teacher, I would like to give you this much of the summary. All right? So with that, you can have a different perspective. Next, before I pass the time to Jerry, I would like to show you a very simple CNN Money interview, okay, on watch how a hacker break into a company, and you try to tell me what he did, okay? It's a very interesting piece.
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills, they have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet.
Social
David Kennedy
intelligence.
is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His
Social
craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team shows how it's done. Step 1, spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi,
wondering if you could take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure, what's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's SURVEY -pro.com.
Yeah, I got that prompt to open. I just put open and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on this computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like, under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
In this case, the company was paying David to hack them and see if their employees would fall for it. They did. To show you this demo, we agreed not to use the company's name. Kennedy Hacks to Protect. He's part of a growing number of hackers using this skill for good. Josh Corman's one of them too. He started a group to help bridge the gap between hackers and big companies.
Hacking is a form of power. Not surprisingly, as you walked into my house and saw all the Spider-Man stuff, I'm a big fan of the Stan Lee line of with great power comes great responsibility. We're coming to a point where the outside world, with a breach a week, a breach a day, affecting people's personal lives and national security, we gotta grow up a bit and we need to be very deliberate about how we use that power.
Corman formed the group after his mom passed away.
She was my science teacher and she kind of taught me that darkness is the absence of light, cold is the absence of heat. You know, if you see something missing in the world, maybe it's our job to put it there. I think the world's going to be whatever we want it to be, and whatever we make it. There are very, very bad people, which means it falls to the good people to try to fight it.
You feel like you have a very personal responsibility.
We have so much potential to shape our culture, our values, our safety, if not us, then who?
Okay, now I do not know if you catch the point, but let me try to annotate for you. You are a student at the University of Macau, all right? So each student at the University of Macau will be given an email account. So with the student ID, you will set up a password for your email account, and then with that account, you also can access the network facility at the University of Macau, all right? So when you use any computer in any specific building, particularly including a library, you log in and you can use it. Now, what can you do to help the hacker to introduce virus into the system at the university? Well, the simplest thing is you open up an email, an identified email with some kind of attachment, and then the attachment will develop in itself, studying from your account and connected with other students' account, particularly if you're in the social media, connected through the friends list, and then spread the virus. Okay, so what does it mean? Sometimes we don't do anything through the system. We just pick up, for example, a simple message, like what you saw in the video, a guy who pretended to be a person working within the company. And this guy sent a specific call for help to the IT support personnel in the company. And this guy tells the IT support personnel that he needs help to get into a particular website, in which he's actually working something there. And because he pretends he himself is a worker within the company, you observed in the video, the IT support personnel did not authenticate whether or not he or she is actually a person working inside the company, but directly helped him to get access to the website, in which he has not done any basic authentications at all. By doing that, you can see from the interview over there, the demonstrations, the hacker got into the company website. And with that, because different privilege will be given to different people on a particular company, and with that privilege, this person's going to actually access different person's account. For example, You are a student in the University of Macau. Do you think that you're the only persons who can access your email account? No. The system administrator and the people working under the system administrator managing different sets of student accounts could definitely get into your email account. Look at your emails. Yet, the company will say different persons are not allowed to do this because this is not your area, but it does not mean he or she could not do it. Different access privileges is often connected with different roles in the company. And what this particular episode tells you is as long as the hacker could manage to get access to that kind of account with control or access privilege to other people's account, it could grab a lot of the information. This is a very interesting video. We are talking about web attacks and internet vulnerabilities. We are talking about the ethical issues of hacking and cracking. But fortunately, in this video, the man which is introduced in this video is actually an ethical hacker. He just simply demonstrated he could break into a system like that, but he is actually hired by the company to test the robustness of the system. And you see, the strength of the system is as good as the weakest of the human link. If a hacker could induce a human worker serving the company to release the information in such a way, no matter how strong a system is in terms of software and hardware, that's no good news. So that person's name introduced in the video is called a social engineer, a hacker for deceptions. Okay? Social engineering is a very important topic today because you never know the person who's talking to you asking for help is real or not. And we people tend to be helpful. Look at what the IT guy said, oh, that's easy, no problem. But that's easy, no problem is creating a loophole for the hacker to get into the company to manipulate the data. Okay? So I'm going to stop here and pass the time to Jerry. Okay, let me just set up his PowerPoint first. It's okay, it's okay. We'll give him a chance. So let's see. Yes, that is Jerry's. Hi Jerry, are you ready to do your 5 minutes presentations? Here is your PowerPoint. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. In my PowerPoint presentation, so what is information technology? Information technology is a way to utilize the stored digitally. The data that is stored digitally. So whatever we do, like moving the data or copy and pasting the data, then that is also counted as information technology. As we all know that in our current living world, that information technology is very important, and we also doing it every minute and every second. So after that, therefore I come up with 3 subtopics for my proposal. So this is 3 subtopics here. How can we protect our own information? What is the current development of IT, and what is the risk of lacking information privacy? So as we can see that 3 of the subtopics is leaning towards the data privacy or information security. For why that I try to take this approach, because I think that IT is a very big deal of our life, and so we should also try to protect our own personal data, just like the video we just watched just now. So there's three subtopics. How can we protect our own information? Not just installing firewall or antivirus software is protecting our data, but also we need to know when should we provide our own personal data. That is also a way to protect our information. And in order to know when we should provide our own personal data, we need to know that the development of IT, like online shopping, e-business, also of that, there is also the development of IT, because in today's society, IT can be used in every company too, so I think it's also very interesting for as a topic. And the last one is, what is the risk of lacking information privacy? So we need to know that the consequences if we expose our personal data. So I think the risk of lacking information privacy is also very important too. So this is the reason why I picked those three subtopics. That's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Thank you for helping us to understand your perspective in the context of information security. Now, may I remind you that by the end of this week, I'd love to see teams being formed. That means you need to connect your pair to another pair in order to form a team. And in case you discover that your pair partner has already dropped the course, you need to repair yourself before you form the team. Okay? So, and then the specific link that I provided you is in week number 6. Okay? Week number 6. If you come back to our website, you go to week number 6. This is this week. Okay? And underneath this, you see there is a link called Team Partner Registration Forum. Okay? I did invite you to provide me the following information. You just need to copy and paste your pair name, you and your pair partner's informations, and your team pair name. For example, if you're pair number 2, this is maybe pair number 1, and then the 2 members' name of your team pair. And then after you copy and paste this, you just say reply. You click reply, just like this one, okay? And then, or better say, you can add a link, not just click reply. Now, remember, this is just the pair information. You need to give me another pair's information to form the team, okay? So you don't just, Neon, you don't just give me one pair information, you also give me another pair, which is your team pair's information. You can come back here to click edit in order to give me the team pair information. I need 2 pairs information. One is with your pair, the other is with your team pair, okay? I need 4 members there. Even though you change your pair membership, it's fine. Just let me know, okay? I will double check it for you, and then I will put you together in that team. Thank you very much for this important note. Please do it before the end of today's therapy, so that I can set up the team links for you by this Friday, all right? So I'm going to take attendance now, and I will entertain some questions if you have. This is not a traditional course as it is. It's a course in which we can enhance your ability to learn so that you have more confidence to do your own study. Coe, are you here? Thank you very much. Anson, not here today. Tracy, thank you. Alfonso, thank you. Neil, thank you. Franco, thank you. Clears, thank you. Oh, Clears, do you want to do your presentations? 5 minutes? Today or Friday? You must upload a PowerPoint first in the week number 4's forum, okay? When I see that, I'll give you a chance. Juno, not here. Shadow, thank you. Jerry, thank you. Carol Wong, thank you. Henry Wong, thank you. Tina, not here today. Marco, thank you. Maggie, thank you. Vincent, thank you. Jeff, thank you. And then White John, not here, okay. And then Henry New, thank you. Dong Yin, yeah, thank you very much. Carry on is not here today, okay. Carol, Carol is not here, okay. Nicholas is not here. All right, so Garbik is not here today. All right, so and then we come to this page on Jose is not here today. Tiger is here. Thank you very much. So I hope those missing students will come back. Do you have any questions? I will be here to answer your questions until 11:15. So in the meantime, that's it for today's CISG 113, section 1 on day number 11. We'll see you back here on day number 12.